Hey, welcome to the show. I'm Maggie.
I'm Mike.
And this is Friends on Fire.
And we're on a mission to get friends to talk about money. So we spent the past few episodes talking about fire and giving a pretty good baseline explanation about what it is and why we're into it and what it means and how you take advantage of it. And now we're on to the third pillar, which we're calling finding freedom. And this is what it's all about, because saving money and growing wealth and doing all those things and making some sacrifices along the way doesn't mean anything if you're not happy with the life you've created for yourself.
Yeah, or there's not a reason you're doing it.
Yeah, and if there's no reason for doing it, then you're very quickly going to lose any motivation to make any changes in your life.
Yeah.
Finding freedom, in my mind, really means finding the opportunity to pursue the things that you are most passionate about. So, Maggie, what are you most passionate about? What would you want to be doing more?
If I was not working an incredibly demanding job that I am working right now, I am most passionate, number one, about my family. So I have 3 young kids, under 11 and under, all girls, and I wish I could spend more time with them. I would love to be more active in their life, and I'm a pretty active, present parent, but I could be doing a lot more, and I would love to be more present and active with them. I would love to be spending more time outdoors, and just from working out to just going on walks and just spending time outdoors in a non-rushed way of I've got 30 minutes to squeeze a run in between, this and this. I would like to be doing more for my community. So I'm actually the PTA president right now. I'm on my 2nd year term.
Congratulations.
Thank you. There was no election. It's there's no people running against each other. They're dying to find people to do these roles. So it was an easy
Can I
election.
Primary against you just for the hell of it?
You could. There's a process where we have to formally go through the elections, and it's if anyone has any, and I'm please somebody fight me for this role.
I'll launch attack ads against you in your campaign.
But honestly, I do the bare minimum some days as a PTA president because I have such a demanding job and just kids and everything else, all my other commitments in life. But I would love to be doing more things like that, because it's actually super important to me to be an active member of my community and to give back. And, to my kids' school is in one way, but just also to volunteering and other things that are meaningful to me. So being a more active member of my community is one thing I would want to put more time against. And then the last thing I'd probably say is just around kind of minimalism and personal finance and fire and all these topics that I'm super passionate about personally. I would love to do more to spread that message and lifestyle to other people, because I really do believe that is the way to find happiness and to improve your lives in so many different ways.
And what I didn't hear you say was you would drop everything and travel the world, which is full-time, which is what most people think of when they hear stories about early retirees. They travel the world and go on adventures. And that's not really what you're looking for. That's not what I'm looking for. I mean, a little bit.
Well, I'll be honest. I do have daydreams of traveling the world. We are in a very unique situation because my husband and I are both divorced, and this is our 2nd marriage. We can't just take our kids and go travel the world. We can't take our kids away from their other parents. I mean, we maybe technically could if we really wanted to figure something out, but it would not be a nice thing to do. And so we're in a unique situation, but I do have dreams of doing much longer trips and traveling for a whole summer with the kids, which
me too.
I want to do. But yeah, I should have said travel, because that would be high on my list.
I know. I'm trying to feed you your own answers here.
You're better at telling me my passions than I am.
And
what about you?
Yeah, so mine are pretty similar. My wife and I both have very passionate hobbies. My wife still swims competitively, trains regularly throughout the week. I do a lot of video and photography projects for fun, which was a previous career before I got into finance. And so we would spend a lot more time doing those things, which bring us a lot of joy. But we would also travel a lot more. We'd be involved in our kids' lives a lot more than we are right now. We would just have the time dedicated to go do the things that bring us joy, but by spending more time, we'd get more joy out of them.
Yeah. I'd also have a slower life, honestly.
Me too.
My life is just crazy right now. I'm just jumping from thing to thing to thing. I never feel like I'm as focused and present. I never feel like I am as focused or present in any personal or professional discussion or situation I'm in. And that's one of the things I would crave the most, is just to sort of slow down and have less commitments and just a simpler, slower life.
Do you think if you had that life, you would be able to remember your points on this podcast and complete your thoughts?
I honestly do. Yes. A little bit better. Maybe not perfect, but I'm not joking. I, over the years, have gotten progressively worse at being able to maintain my thoughts and I blame some of that on kids who are constantly interrupting everything I'm trying to say or do. But I really do think it's gotten like progressively worse in the past 10 years. But keep going. You're just making fun of me. I don't know if that was a legit question.
It was not a legit question. I was just poking fun at you. I think the important thing here is, we are not retired yet, and we have all these things we want to do, but we're not at the point yet where we're ready to
take the plunge,
burn the boats, go do it. Because we found a pretty good balance in our lives. I mean, we have the opportunity to do this podcast, which is like extremely fulfilling and fun for us. We have our activities and our passions. We're able to travel and do a bunch of things. It's kind of what we talked about earlier, is how the pressure is off when you are not desperate for a paycheck.
I totally agree. That we've talked about the idea of freedom. Like, that is financial freedom. Neither one of us has chosen to leave our jobs, but the idea that we could, if things ever got that bad, or we didn't have the flexibility that we both have now, is incredibly satisfying. And again, it's like what keeps me going every day is like, I know I am in control of my life, and I'm making the decisions I want to make, how I want to make them, when I want to make them, and I choose to go to work every day. Well, some days, most days.
So the first two pillars in this series of episodes was saving money and growing wealth. And in order to find freedom, you need to really understand those two pieces and have been doing them for a long time. So when you save money and you find that ideal lifestyle, how much it takes for you to be happy. And when you know that dollar amount, you also know how much you need. And so if you were to, use the 4% rule, which we talked about early on, which has some flaws in it, you could come up with your financial independence number based on the ideal lifestyle that you've calculated for yourself. A different way of doing it is just taking your net worth and dividing your annual expenses. Like, how many years does that get you? And I think that's kind of an interesting exercise for people. And there's two things that I like to talk about with people when we're talking about savings rate and net worth and that sort of things. So take your net worth and divide by your expenses. So let's say you have $300,000 and you spend $100,000 a year. That's 3 years of savings essentially that you have. Does that seem like a lot to you? And maybe you thought you had a lot more. Maybe that seems like much more than you thought. But that's kind of a good baseline check. And then the other is how much of your money you are spending. If you follow normal guidance that says you should save about 5% of your income, and that's like a good target and you can retire, that means that you're spending 95% of your income, which means that in order to, let's take $100,000, you save $5,000, you spend $95,000 a year. In order to save that amount of money, it will take you 19 years to save $5,000 to get to the point where you have $95,000 and you have 1 year of living expenses. That does not seem
super depressing when you say it that way.
It's super depressing. Now, this is overly simplified because that $5,000 would grow and you could do stuff with it. But, to put it in perspective, you need to save a ton of money.
Yeah. Well, you'll hear a lot of people. First off, I know some people could be listening to this thinking, oh, these two people have corporate jobs and they probably make a decent amount of money and it's easy, and they're later in their careers. And so it's easy for them to talk about this. But I hear a lot of stories, and I know people who, both people in the relationship may be teachers and they're not making a massive amount of money, but they've gotten their lifestyle to a point where they're living off one person's paycheck, as an example. And so if you think about that, every year, just on some this is rough Maggie math and not Mike math, but every year you're basically saving a year's worth of expenses. So I'm oversimplifying it, but let's say it's 2 teachers and you both make $40,000 a year, but you're able to live off just one person's salary and you're saving the other half, and your annual expenses are about $40,000 a year. Now, every year you work, you're able to save a future year of work. And then that's going to compound. And if you invest it well, it's going to make more money. And if you do that early on when you're young, you're massively changing the trajectory of your life and giving yourself freedom at a much younger age than if you were spending 80 grand a year and living, paycheck to paycheck. I think you've lost you've lost what I define as freedom in my life.
I agree. And one of the things, Maggie, you talked about is like when you're stressed out, you kind of like, you look at your net worth.
I open Wealthfront, which tracks my full net worth.
You open up Wealthfront, you see how much money you have, or you tighten up the purse strings and you save a little bit more, and that makes you happy and that helps you deal with the stress.
Makes me feel in control of what's happening.
Yeah.
Too.
The one thing that really, really helps me stay focused is I calculate my net worth every month. I have a chart. I keep track of all my accounts and all my assets. And we'll do some episodes on this. But when I look at how much my net worth grows every month, and then I calculate that as a number of years of living expense or number of months of living expense, I know that like I'm being really effective with my resources. And I know that I've worked 30 days, but as a result of that, I've given myself 130 days of freedom or some other calculation. And that's a really good feeling. And so when we're talking about finding freedom, even if you're not there yet, you haven't retired, you haven't given up the paycheck, there is a sense of freedom you have in accumulating the resources and knowing that your life is getting a little bit different each day. You're getting a little bit closer to your goal. There's a little bit more cushion. You have more freedom in your decision making than you did before. And that's a great feeling.
I mean, I mentioned this, I think, on the last episode, but I really have found this inverse relationship between how hard I'm working and how stressed out I am in life and how much I spend money. Like I find a little bit of I find a lot of happiness and control and just really good feelings from controlling my expenses and growing my wealth and growing my net worth basically in the end. And again, not because I want to like buy something fancy or go buy a bigger house or whatever it is, but because I want freedom and I highly value freedom. And it's funny, I never really thought about it till we were talking about this, but freedom is one of the things I value most in the world. Even when I think about work, and one of the things, as stressful or demanding as my job might be some days, one of the things I love about my job is I have a fairly high amount of flexibility and freedom from my boss and trust from my boss that, I'm not telling him where I am every second or having to kind of like tell him every single detail of what's going on at work. But I've highly value that, like even just that sense of freedom and having some level of like autonomy. And that's not perfect. I mean, any big corporate environment, like you've got to communicate a lot and let everybody know what's happening. But just the idea of freedom and autonomy to me is one of the most amazing feelings in the world, which is why FIRE. It's why I'm on this journey that I didn't even know was called FIRE until a couple of years ago. And wasn't able to put words to it, but it's incredibly important and it is what makes me happy. And I think people spending some time thinking about what really makes them happy is super important. The book Playing with Fire and the documentary, I know they talk about it in the book and they may talk about it in the documentary also. Highly recommend both of them, by the way. In the book Playing with Fire, the author talks about how he did this exercise with his wife, and it's one of the things that really turned her over to being more open to this lifestyle and this goal that he had created. And he said, like, write down the top 10 things that make you happy. And I did this exercise with my husband too, and I found it super powerful with myself and to see his, and that was the whole point of Scott in the book Playing with Fire, talking about this. The 10 things that him and his wife wrote down and that me and my husband wrote down, most of them didn't cost a lot of money. Some of them cost money, but like the things for me, when I really like search my soul and I'm honest with myself about what makes me happy, it's not things that cost a ton of money. And that's one thing that I think is important when you kind of, if you're interested in this journey at all, is to really like do some soul searching, take notice of what is most important to you in life and what truly makes you happy. And kind of, if those things are super consumerism focused, like maybe ask yourself some questions of why, and like if that's really authentic, and it might be for you. And we've said this before, but it might be that you're really into cars and like that's okay, and maybe you can afford it and totally fine. Just taking some time to really think about what is most important to you and what truly makes you happy, I think is a great exercise that can help you you continue this journey and kind of get to a point of realizing the idea of financial freedom.
I was about to make the most powerful point.
Did you forget it because of me?
I did. You're rubbing off on me.
I feel really bad. I feel like you should write more things down because I'm going to constantly make you lose your train of thought.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I think about a lot on this journey is, when we started this particular podcast, Mike was asking me what things are most important to me. And I rattled off a lot of different topics and he rattled off some similar ones. And I say those things are most important to me, but I still spend the majority of my life working for a paycheck that I arguably don't totally need right now, at least, for a long time, based on how I've saved and how I live my lifestyle. And so tied to the idea of financial freedom, I almost on a daily basis am questioning when I should actually create that more freedom in my life. And maybe I should be more literal and quit working.
Well, maybe...
do you have those thoughts?
I do. Pretty regularly. I think about, I really want to just take my kids on an epic road trip of all the national parks in the U.S. for like a year.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome.
But the other thing is, when it comes to like our specific plans, there's something kind of romantic about the notion of giving it all up and going and doing something else. But our situation, my situation in particular, is pretty good. Like our kids are little. There's only so much we can do with them.
They ideally need to go to school every day. Yeah,
they need to go to school. Having a routine is nice. And so like we have a very nice lifestyle and we do the things we want to do. And there will be a point where it's no longer the right balance. Right. And that's the point where I think you and I both, it will be different points and under different circumstances we'll say, all right, I'm good. And so having the freedom to like recognize that point is one thing. And that's what you're talking about, like what's really meaningful to you. So knowing when you've reached that point and then having the resources to do it is what this is about.
Yeah. I think I spend too much time overanalyzing when that point will be. And sometimes my husband is like, quit thinking about it day to day and just like set a date out in the future and be like, look, I don't need to think about it for another year because I'm definitely going to work for another year. Well, what are your, like when you think about financial freedom, I know we've already talked about some things, but what are the biggest topics that come to mind for you? And like, just what do you think of when we talk about this third pillar?
Certainly not needing to earn money is one level of it. Another level is never worrying about money again. I think I'll always be, even when I don't need to earn it, I'll always be kind of concerned and focused on it because I know that it could go away, like, money in the market or in real estate can be lost. And so one level of financial independence is not needing a paycheck. The next level is having so much money that you really don't worry about it ever again. And if I get to that point, and I don't expect myself to get there because it would require me working longer than I think I need to, it's just about, I don't think I would change my lifestyle in any meaningful way because I don't particularly enjoy going to super expensive restaurants. I don't enjoy going to super luxurious hotels. It's not my type of thing.
Not your style.
Yeah. I would feel uncomfortable driving around in a $150,000 car. I'd be worried about it getting dinged.
Yeah, I would too.
So it's just like, I wouldn't do those things anyway. So there would be I would have a certain level of resources where like, I wouldn't even be concerned about the little things anymore. But again, I'm probably not going to get there. I want to get to the point where I don't, I definitely don't ever have to work again. And I think what I would find, I think what most people find is that if you've had a very successful career and you developed a lot of skills and made a lot of good relationships, like you will, if you need to earn money or you want to make money, even if you're not even looking for those things, you will find a way to make money because you've developed skills that people find of value. I'm hoping this is going to be our ticket to like an even faster retirement.
Yeah, this podcast.
Right.
Yeah. We should note that we're doing this because we're super passionate about it. And we've actually had discussions that we're going to do this for a long time, even if it never actually gets much traction or if we never get any sponsors or anything else. We're still in it to win it.
And I think this is the perfect example of what financial independence means. Like we will do this without any expectation of ever making any money whatsoever. And it doesn't diminish. In fact, I would say it makes it even more exciting and fulfilling for us because we're not worried about making money on it.
Yeah, I agree. My happiness level has increased in a noticeable way. I usually feel like I'm a pretty happy person, but like noticeable way in the past like 4 to 6 weeks that we've started talking about this podcast and getting serious about it and like starting to do it and take action on it.
I feel like we should give each other a hug right now.
We're too far away from each other in this booth.
And we'd knock the microphones all over the place.
It would create a lot of background. Air hug. So no, I mean, it means a lot because this is something I care a lot about, and not just for myself. I really do believe it's a very meaningful path that can create a lot more happiness in this world and a lot more people just able to pursue their passions and do what they love and not feel, chained or tied to a particular type of job. Also, Mike, you just made a comment a second ago that I'll just comment on just around the idea of when and if, because it's not if, when we retire and when most people do, and most people you see even in the FIRE movement that have already retired, they're not doing anything. They're just not doing the type of job they were doing before, which might not have been their passion. Like I do love my job and I love the company I work for. And I have a great deal of confidence, and this is what Mike was saying earlier, that if and when I leave that job, A, my entire identity is not tied to it. B, I could always come back to something like that in the future if I wanted to. And if I didn't want to come back to something like that, I could get another job. I have skills. I've got a good, track record and history and good, just good contacts and good, not even good contacts, but I have a good reputation and I've worked hard.
However, you would have to make it through an interview with cohesive thoughts.
Cohesive thoughts. That would be tricky. But I have a lot of self-confidence that even if I end up needing to make more money, if I retire early and then I need to make more money someday, there's a lot of things I could do to make money. Everything from going back to the type of job I have now, to I always joke like going to work at Trader Joe's. I hear they have great benefits, and I've already done my Home Depot stint, so I'm gonna try Trader Joe's next. But they got great benefits. Everybody seems super happy every time I'm shopping there.
Thrilled.
I mean, like my kids love going to Trader Joe's. The employees are so friendly. Anyways, so I take a lot of confidence and freedom in knowing like I'm a capable person who could do lots of things, and also important, I don't have so big of an ego that I need to have a certain type of job. So if something happened and I was down and out, like I'd get a job to be able to put food on the table for my kids and to be able to have insurance or whatever I needed. And I know I could. And there's also knowing that that's always a backup plan if something were to go wrong or something were to happen, I think also sort of adds to the feeling of kind of freedom and autonomy that comes from this. Yeah. So once you make that early retirement decision, it's not forever, right? It just gives you some room to breathe and to go pursue different passions in your life, which I think is the point of it. And again, everybody you see and hear about in the FIRE movement that has gone and quit their job, they're still working. They're just doing something different that they're super passionate about.
Right. Maybe even working harder.
Yeah, true. Okay, we're up for Mike's Minute on the Mic. So this is the segment where I ask Mike a surprise question and he only has 60 seconds to answer it. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Just get my stuff.
Nervous but ready.
Going. Okay, here's my question for this episode. Mike, if you won the lottery tomorrow and you got $10 million in that lottery, what would you do differently than what you're already doing? Or just what would you do?
What would I do differently? I wouldn't do a lot differently. I think $10 million is more than enough money I need for the rest of my life. So I would...
Let's call it 6 after taxes, but keep going.
All right, 6. I would probably still quit my job that day. I won't even bother. I would
give 2 weeks notice though, right?
I'm not sure I would even.
Look, you're my finance business partner. I feel like it would not be cool to not give 2 weeks notice. Oh, sorry. This is your 60 seconds.
Yeah, you can't.
Keep going.
I guess I would. I do really like the people I work with. And so I would stick around for 2 weeks, maybe even longer. Maybe I'd even work part-time just so that I think people would miss me. Maybe. That's what I like to tell myself.
I'd be okay.
Yeah. Well, because we see each other all the time. I wouldn't do anything different. I would just accelerate all my plans.
Would you like splurge? Would you like, buy your parents something? Would you buy me anything? Whatever. Just throwing out ideas.
I would not buy you anything because you're minimalist and you would reject the gift.
Would we like upgrade our mics or something?
Maybe we'd get some new podcasting equipment. There would probably be like $100,000 of like stuff I didn't really need that I would buy.
Okay.
But I wouldn't go buy a new house. I wouldn't go fly business class. I wouldn't change that much.
What about that REI jacket that you once talked about?
Would
you go get like another one in a different color?
Only if mine ripped.
Oh, really? Okay.
No, it's black. It goes with everything.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Yeah. Okay, that wraps up another episode, and I hope you all enjoyed the discussion on financial independence and the third pillar, which is financial freedom.
And we're going to be digging into a lot of kind of subtopics within this stuff throughout the future of this podcast. But I think this is just a good introduction to how we feel about these things, what our approach is, and provide a little more context for when we talk about these things in the future. So a few housekeeping things. If you have questions or comments, please give us a call at 404-981-3370 and leave us a question, comment, or tip. We will play it on the air. We really do want to hear from you guys.
And then also, please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to this podcast. It really helps us, and we would greatly appreciate it.
All right. Well, this has been fun. Thanks, Maggie.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye.
Bye.